What do DayZ, Rust, Fortnite, Apex Legends, PUBG, Warzone, and maybe even Tarkov and Arc Raiders all have in common with a military simulator game released in the late 20 known as Arma 2? Well, without Arma 2, none of these games would ever exist. Now, the few of you that watch me probably know a lot about Arma, about DayZ, and why that statement makes perfect sense once you understand the butterfly effect that started with the modest release of this iconic milsim. But for those that don't, let me help you out. Like every famous game or game series, Arma started out with a dedicated group of people trying to bring their vision to life. Bohemia Interactive was founded by Mark Spinell in May 1999, and after releasing some interesting titles, they came out with Operation Flashpoint Cold War Crisis in 2001. This was an attempt at the most truly realistic military simulator at the time, and after honing this concept on an expansion in another game and a fallout with their publisher Codemasters, Arma Armed Assault was born on, I guess, various release dates, actually. After a successful release, an expansion, and another off-brand release, Arma 2 finally came into being on May 29th, 2009. You want to know the craziest fact of all about this game's release? Despite how pivotal this game has become for the modern gaming landscape, it only sold 174 copies its opening day on Steam. That's right. This game I'm dedicating a whole video to due to its historical importance in the gaming world sold less than some SoundCloud rapper's first album on day one. So how did this game go from 174 copies sold to the over 2 million it stands at today? Well, some of you could probably guess, but first let's go over what came next. Arma 2, by today's standards, is very rudimentary. Opening doors required you to scroll wheel over them. When running with a gun, you looked like you were holding a telephone pole and moving like you had a wedgie. Before its time, it was revolutionary as a true modern milsim. The main map the game released with was Chernarus, an Eastern European map set after the end of the Cold War in which U.S. Marines fought the local militia. On June 29, 2010, the expansion Operation Arrowhead released as well, which added new weapons, new vehicles, a new map, and even FLIR imaging with certain scopes. So by this point, Arma 2 could have been described as a dad game, as coined by famous game reviewer Yahtzee Croshaw. It was very niche, as in you had to be incredibly into realism and accuracy, and value these things far more than fluid gameplay or anything resembling a fast-paced game. There's nothing wrong with this, it's just definitely not what the average gamer was looking for in the time period of peak Call of Duty and Halo popularity. But then a moment occurred which we're still feeling the effects of in the gaming community today. A moment which butterflied out into a world of competitive open-world survival games and battle royales. In April 2012, a Bohemia contractor decided to make a mod for Arma 2 that didn't really fit well into the general concept of what Arma was. A mod that had a unique idea and implications. A zombie survival mod called DayZ. Now if you're here, watching this video, you know what DayZ is. The original mod had the same concept as the modern game you can play today. It was simple. You're dropped into Chernarus on a server with however many other players and hordes of zombies with no gun, no food or drink, with nothing to your name. You loot up, get supplies to survive, and if God shined his light down upon you, you might even find a Lee Enfield. This was all simple, nothing entirely original, but the thing that separated it was something no other game had. The freedom to deal with other players however you see fit. That guy looted the food you were looking for? Guess you have to kill him with your fire axe. You meet some random man with broken legs in the middle of the street? Why not use some of your morphine and heal him out of the kindness of your heart? It was all up to you, and this freedom to interact with players and the fear of how they would treat you led to unique experiences that hadn't existed in any form of gaming up to this point. To really start to explain the butterfly effect that spawned from this one moment, we'll start with the obvious. The DayZ mod was so popular, it caused Arma 2, which is now 3 years old, to reach the Steam top seller chart for 7 weeks. Various offshoots of the mod spawned as well, to the point where a vast majority of Arma 2 servers were some form of DayZ. Due to the popularity, Bohemia charged Dean Hall to create a standalone version of the mod called DayZ. I won't go into the history of DayZ standalone here. People more articulate than me have talked that topic to death over the years. But for the purpose of this video, just understand that as a start, Arma 2 led to the DayZ mod, which obviously led to the standalone release of DayZ. Getting into something a little less obvious, the original DayZ mod inspired another survival game which is thriving to this day, Rust. I didn't realize it till I made this video, but actually Rust released in early access 5 days before DayZ Standalone did in December 2013. My teenage mind at the time couldn't really handle it, and I was pretty obsessed with both games for a while. So did Rust copy DayZ wholeheartedly? No, but the core concept was clearly lifted right from DayZ. You spawn with nothing, interact with other players how you see fit, get that same adrenaline rush during PvP or when PvP might take place, and do whatever you can to get a decent gun. Sure, base building was a core tenet not really present in the original DayZ mod, and there were more PvE threats than just zombies, but the initial game was very clearly trying to capture the DayZ magic. If you don't believe me, here's Gary Newman, the head of Facepunch, literally saying Rust started out as a DayZ clone on his blog. Now, Rust at this point has surpassed DayZ in popularity, and is almost completely unrecognizable from its initial early access release. But it's impossible to deny that without the DayZ mod, there is no Rust. So up to this point, we've stayed in the same genre, open world survival games. And just so it's obvious, there's been a lot of open world survival games that have flopped over the years that also tried to copy DayZ. Rust is just a much better example than them because unlike the obvious cash grab DayZ clones, Facepunch and Gary Newman had much more of their own ideas and built Rust into something great. But what about another popular genre that dominated the last half of the 2010s and is still incredibly popular today? What about battle royales? During the heyday of the DayZ mod, there was a fan who made his own DayZ server, a man by the name of Brendan Green, or better known today by his nickname, Player Unknown. Brendan clearly liked the DayZ mod, and it inspired him to make a mod of his own, which he initially called DayZ Battle Royale after the popular Japanese movie of the same name. This is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of spawning in a world and simply surviving as long as you can, you loot up and try to kill everyone else while the playable map area gets smaller until there's one man left standing. For Brendan, this was only the beginning, as he probably has one of the most impressive track records as far as development is concerned for modern gaming. He went on to make another Battle Royale mod for Arma 3, then became an advisor for Sony on H1Z1 King of the Hill, the Battle Royale version of the previously released DayZ clone H1Z1. Then, he was recruited by South Korean game company Krafton to make his own Battle Royale game, which of course became PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. With all this info, it's now obvious where the butterfly effect really goes nuts. If Arma 2 never released, leading to the DayZ mod never coming out, Brendan would have never been inspired to make his initial Battle Royale mod that started the entire genre. From his impressive track record, the entire industry seemed to copy him. Warzone, Fortnite, Apex Legends, all these games owe their existence to a man that owned a simple DayZ mod server and wanted to experiment with a mod of his own. And no, Minecraft Hunger Games did not start the Battle Royale genre. Don't even start with that bullshit. They literally just copied the movie as close as they could, and it's not like other companies try to take the concept and copy it in other games. I love Minecraft, but just, no. So we now have a pretty impressive diagram here. But now I'm going to get into a bit of conjecture of another important genre that I think the DayZ mod and therefore Arma 2 inspired, the extraction shooter. I don't have anything as obvious as a man literally being inspired by DayZ to make his own mod that started the genre, just more so coincidences that led to the first real extraction shooter developed, Escape from Tarkov, being what it ended up being. For one, development for Tarkov started in 2012, around the same time the DayZ mod was released and was getting mainstream popularity. Nothing concrete there, but this on top of the fact that Tarkov also has an Eastern European setting and has a very similar cutthroat looting system where you can lose your gear in the blink of an eye with adrenaline-boosting dynamic PvP, makes it hard for me to think that at the very least Battlestar games weren't inspired by DayZ's success. I see extraction shooters and Battle Royale games as opposite sides of the same coin. Both take the initial open-world survival PvP concept and lighten the blow of failure. In DayZ, if you die, generally that's it. You could have lost 8 hours of work in the blink of an eye to a guy you never saw or even heard. In Battle Royales, your loot has a finite lifespan regardless, as does a play session. So if you die, no big deal. You lost minutes, not hours. You just start the next game and try again. Extraction shooters retain the idea of keeping your loot, but again, you're only in the open world for a short amount of time, can stash excess loot you're not using in a safe place not in the open world, and even have the ability to keep a few items even if you die. So like I said, this is just conjecture. But as long as I've known about Tarkov, I've had a feeling that it too owes at least a lot of its identity to DayZ. If you disagree with me, that's fine. But if you do agree, then not only does Tarkov owe its success to DayZ/Arma 2, so do games like Arc Raiders and even Dark and Darker. So we now have this complete mess of a diagram with multiple incredibly high-profile titles and dozens more not even listed, and 2, maybe even 3 new genres being created. You could credit a lot of individuals for this. Bohemia founder Marek Spinell for making the Arma series in the first place, Dean Hull for making the initial DayZ mod, Brendan Green for starting the Battle Royale genre. But as for me, I think it's important to note that if not for this one game that sold 174 copies on Steam in its first day, the gaming landscape would undoubtedly look incredibly different today. Hello everyone. So, off script now. I really wanted to make a video like this. It's something I've thought about for a while. If you guys like it, if the video does well, I'll definitely make more videos like this because it was a lot of fun and more interesting than just, piling a bunch of Arma clips together, even though I do enjoy that too. So if you liked it, make sure to leave a like, make sure to, watch the whole thing all the way through, which I guess if you got to this point, you did. But I'd just like to say I appreciate you for watching my content and hope to see you around.